So I can't wait, folks. But it may also affect you, personally in your own private horoscopes, and you have to see where your Venus and Pluto are aspected in your horoscopes, rather, to see how that affects you. And maybe we'll talk about that tonight in conjunction with the Mayan calendar, who knows. But all of that is like coming to a head now. It's becoming very intense, the energies, and so I'm hoping that these lectures and programs will give you some information to help you get through these times. Okay, the future, we're having our next monthly meeting will be in August, and that will be our 22nd anniversary potluck picnic, which we have every year here on the grounds at Pebble. And we usually have a little program, so this time we're having a swap meet, a metaphysical swap meet. For those of you who want to give up your gently used metaphysical items, books, crystals, tapes, CDs, candles, please bring them. And if you want to sell them, we may have a selling table as well as a swap table. We're also going to have an open mic opportunity for people who want to come up and talk about their spiritual journey. When did they awaken spiritually and why? And I think that's very powerful and important to honor people in their journey and how they became spiritually aware. So that's coming up in August, so I hope you can all make it. And now, is there any other announcements? I guess we'll have Gary first talk about that, of course. So Gary.
Welcome.
Member of our board.
Thanks, Amy. Hello, everyone.
Hello. Gary.
Hello. Welcome to Pebble Hill Church. If this is the first time you've been here, Pebble Hill's interfaith community. We have Sunday celebration every Sunday morning at 10:30, and with various celebrations. We are, as I said, interfaith. So there's no dogma, there's no particular theology. It is really about each person bringing their own individual soul, their own path, and it's really honoring all paths and all people. And we are going to be, the next several Sundays, we will be going into the Mayan calendar series. So Gary Culp, who is presenting tonight, this is really the kickoff for going into the Mayan calendar series, which is going to continue for the next 3 Sundays following this. So there's a whole lot that's going to be going on. I'm sure Gary will say more about it. He's the one who's going to be leading these celebrations. And we're very, very fortunate to have Gary because he's here from Mexico. And he was our minister for 17 years at Pebble Church. So we're very honored to have him here tonight. And we figured we would seize the moment because we know he was going to be around and we captured him. And but he was a volunteer. I think this was all co-created. So you're in for a wonderful night, and I know Amy will say more about it tonight. But I want to say a few more things that are happening in Pebble Hill. Today will be a workshop called Follow Your Passion, Be Your Bliss. It's going to be sponsored by, led by Barry Elaine Silver, who is a singer-songwriter, and Edie Weinstein, who is also known as the Bliss Mistress. So if you walk out of that workshop and you're not off the ground about at least 5 feet, then you didn't get it. So there's something very powerful that they do. They're really going to teach a lot of really wonderful tools around really working or actually more like a play shop than a workshop. So it should be fun. There's flyers. I have a flyer here that is a sample. They're on the table, so grab a flyer and join us. It's Saturday from 1 to 4. There's a $25 fee. I also want to make sure people are aware of that. August 9th, Thursday, August 9th, 7:30 p.m. In this space, we're going to have Mr. Yastel Yamada. He's the founder of the Skilled Veterans. He's the founder of the Skilled Veterans Corps for Fukushima, which is a nuclear power plant that got hit by the tsunami several years ago. And he's a retired engineer in the 70s. And he's coming, he's here in the United States on tour to share about what's happening with the nuclear power plant in Japan. Retired engineers have actually stepped up to the plate to take the lead in helping to cool down the nuclear rods. And they know that they will be exposed to radiation, and they are doing it because it's the honorable thing to do. And they are doing that to replace younger people who do not put their lives and their families at risk. So he's trying to raise awareness in the United States. We need a very big program here. Gary is also going to be involved in the program. And you'll have a chance to meet this individual. He's quite impressive. He is part of the Fukushima response organization. And it's a $10, we ask for $10 donation or whatever you can afford. Nobody will be turned away. He's also going to the United Nations the following week to give testimony. So it'll be quite an event to come here and hear this individual and experience what he has to say. And that's it for me.
Yeah, that was really very interesting. You know, try to attend that Fukushima program. Again, that feels like that's a result of the Pluto-Uranus square. Pluto being the ruler of plutonium and the radiation, and we have the thing with Uranus, sudden transformation and change in Japan and the tidal wave. It just seems like very powerful forces operating here. So let's see if there's anything else I need to tell you about announcements. Oh, I just want to mention. Was a speaker here, I guess about 6 months ago, and she's a channeler, and she channels tonals and information from her guides. And a friend of mine is still on this here tonight, and I went to see her last night, and I have to say that she's a very powerful channel, and does a lot of healing work with the sound of her voice and the tonals. And she's very reasonably priced, so if you're interested in finding someone who does that kind of work, I can talk to you about that afterwards. It's a powerful channel. I'm so proud that we have these wonderful people who do come here, who do great work, and I hope to continue with that. Okay. All right, I guess so. We're going to go on to the program. Any questions or comments there before we go on to the program? All right. So as Gary said, Gary Culp is here tonight to present on the Mayan calendar and the day out of time, which is today. Believe it or not, it is a day out of time on the Mayan calendar, so we're going to find out more about that as well as the Mayan calendar prophecies. And for those of you who don't know Gary at all, just a quick background information. Again, Gary was reporting in the Catholic Church for 17 years. He came to serve from a rich background. He attended Drew Theological Seminary, the University of Edinburgh Theological Seminary in Scotland, as well as Princeton Theological Seminary, where he completed a master's degree in theology. Gary also taught public school for many years while focusing on alternative education. He served as pastor in several United Methodist churches until his ministry at Pebble Hill. Reverend Culp has been involved in learning and teaching everything he can about the common thread of spiritual truth that weaves through all the world's religions, and he has used this information to guide Pebble into its new role as an interfaith celebration community. So with that, let us now welcome Reverend Gary Culp.
Wow. Yes. Thanks, Deb. I also have this little mic here. Do I need to turn it on, I guess? Sorry?
You're okay. It's already on.
Well, we'll trust that. If I walk away, is it still working over here? Oh, great. This is a photograph from the Hubble telescope. You know, we didn't even know that other galaxies existed until 1929, when Mr. Hubble actually was looking through his telescope and discovering other kind of quasar things out there and spinning things, and finally decided that we live in a universe that is expanding and that it exists with many, many more galaxies than the one that we thought was the only one. So 1929 ain't that far back, you know, so that we're really living in a very expanded time. And time is expanding, and we're expanding along with it. So it's wonderful to, I just feel so blessed, and we all should feel blessed by being alive in this particular, I don't know how we did that, you know, we don't know how we did that, but to be alive in this particular epoch, in the closing of this wonderful, wonderful cycle of time that the Maya are certainly clear about. But just to give you a little tiny piece of history of how I got involved in the Maya calendar, it goes back to an event that I went to up in New York, which was celebrating a medicine wheel. And you ever heard of Sun Bear? Okay, well, he was from the west, out west, but he was the first Native American. He's passed now, he's no longer alive, but he was the first indigenous person on our continent here who opened the mysteries of the sacred hoop, the sacred wheel, etc., to the Wachichu. And the Wachichu are us, unless some of you are native indigenous people here, which I probably doubt a bit. But the Wachichu were the people who were the enemy, in a sense. And even the word itself, I'm not going to tell you how it's translated, but we were called the Wachichu. But it was a time in the history of the indigenous sacred life that Sun Bear himself felt moved to, called to, and actually felt that he was destined to bring the sweat lodge, the medicine wheel, the sacred pipe ceremony, and many other indigenous pieces to us, to the white folk. And so I went to this workshop and to this event up in New York. He was still alive at that time, and participated in a most amazing ritual of opening the gateways of the medicine wheel. And there were over 100 people there, and I just felt so, again, privileged to be, how sometimes you find out about things, and it's even before I was even into the internet that much, and but I went. And there, a woman, a teacher, focused on me for some reason. She felt like I needed some information that she had. You know how we do. It's all about mysticism. It's all about being mystics and understanding that the connections that we have with people are really deeper than meets the interest of the eye, So she gave me a piece of paper, and on it was a Mayan calendar month. And she said, I think you should have this. Well, I hadn't really heard much about it. How many of you know of the harmonic convergence that happened back in '87 on August 15, 16, and 17? Well, if you weren't there or didn't know about it, it was a time when Jose Arcueles put an event together that signified the final 25 years of the Mayan calendar, that he was just at that point really going deep in his understanding of it. And he is a cultural anthropologist and an artist, and his earlier books were about mandalas. And so in the mandalas, he discovered more and more about what the Maya were about, and he was studying the Aztec calendar, that huge 12-foot high stone calendar that exists now in the Mexican Archaeological Museum. And all of this accumulated energy with Jose brought him to understanding that we were in a very interesting time. Terence McKenna, who some of you may know about, who's also passed now, was the first person to give us the 2012 date. And he got it from the mushroom people. He was really into psilocybin, and he was into different kinds of travels of that sort. But he got it through that kind of information. And then Jose, of course, and other people who've been studying the Mayan calendar began to tune into what this was all about. And so that within years, the community of people who were really trying to understand Mayan cosmology began to blossom like a lotus. And one petal after another would open and open and open until finally there was quite a bit of knowledge to be shared. And Jose Arcueles, from Colorado at that time, but he has part indigenous background, began with the harmonic convergence for us in August. And he said it's the closing of a time and the opening of a cusp, as we might talk about in astrology, a time in between. And that time in between was probably 35 or 37 years that would lead us through 2012, which is where we are right now, and probably into the next 8 or 10 years of a change, a grand cycle of time. And this grand cycle of time is one that is 1,825,000 years long, and days long, or it amounts to about 5,125 years. And it goes back to a stela. You know what a stela is? It's a big stone engraving. This time and this date is written in stone. This is not some made-up thing that someone created out of a channeling experience or whatever, but something that really captured the curiosity of the major archaeological people from the United States, the University of Pennsylvania. Jennifer and I spent the day today at the Archaeological Museum at University of Pennsylvania. If you haven't been there, it's a wonderful day experience. We just took the part of it that was Maya today because I'd heard a lot about it and I wanted to see what was there. And we had just a marvelous experience, and any of you can go and walk through what they have. They have, the University of Pennsylvania itself has been instrumental in archaeological discovery in 5 to 7 of the major archaeological sites in Mexico. And so many of the things they brought back to their museum, you know, and so this is even before the time that the Mexican government would definitely be totally upset by that happening today. But at that point, oh yeah, we'll just put this on a truck and we'll bring it. And some of the stela, you know, are like, I'm standing here, a foot off the floor, and I'm reaching up to about 7 feet. Some of them are quite a bit taller than I'm even reaching right now, standing there in the museum itself, and they weigh tons. So, you know, this stuff has to be moved around. Sort of reminds you of a Stonehenge or something. How do they get these rocks up here, you know, and from all those distances and stuff? But with our modern technology, things are possible. So the archaeological community got really interested in what this Mayan calendar stuff is about and began debating it and changing things and interpreting things. And many people believe that the Mayan language is something that is a lost language and we really don't understand it. And that's not true. Not too many years ago, a Russian who was a decoder decoded the Mayan language, and people didn't really buy it. And then there was a woman, actually the woman was first in Scandinavia, who decoded it, and they sort of debunked her. And then this Russian decoder got involved in decoding. Matter of fact, it was during the war that this one, I don't recall his name, but he rushed into a museum when the bombing was going on in Dresden and in Germany and different places, and he somehow was moved to go into this place that he knew was going to be bombed, went in and grabbed one book, he brought it out, and later on discovered that it was the Dresden Codex, which is one of the 4 codexes of the Maya that still exist. We had a horrible anniversary on the 19th of July, just a few days ago, which was the day that Bishop Landa of the Roman Catholic Church in the Yucatan ordered all of the codexes and all of the statuary and all of the relics and things to be brought to him. And the Maya brought all of this stuff, over 2,000 statues and relics and things, and over 2,000 codexes. I'll show you what one looks like. A codex is a bark book, and the bark book is then coated with lime or a white paste, and then painted on all of the words in the story that is about their history. 2,000 of them were brought in, and he burned them all. There were,
What year is that?
that was 450 years ago. It was in 1562. So it was several days ago was the 450th anniversary of the burning of these sacred books that have, you can imagine what kind of recording of archaeology and astronomy and medicines and history of all their cultures all went up in smoke. Thank goodness, 4 of them made their way out of Mexico, probably, under some friar's robe or something, because he was curious about it, and they got to Europe. And so there's a Spanish one right now, there's a Dresden Codex, there are 4 of them. And through this person's discovery of this Dresden Codex and his saving it from being destroyed, he got totally inspired by it. Couldn't believe that he had been gifted by this, and he was a decoder himself. And so he began to study the Dresden Codex and was the one who eventually decoded it and taught all of us, not me, because I don't know how to read it. I know what the glyphs are about, but I don't know how to read Mayan. We're now able to be translated. So we know the stories that these 4 partial books or codexes of the Maya that now exist. We have known a great deal of them. Probably the most important one is the Dresden Codex. And so a lot of the work that I'm doing right now, we've just created this, this book for this year, and all of our glyphs, it's a daykeeper book, and all of our glyphs are taken from the Dresden Codex, so that we're trying to keep with the as clearly with the tradition as we possibly can. And this is available for any of you who'd like it at the end. So, long story longer, it goes on until finally people all over the world are now aware of Jose Arcueles' work, because he is an artist at marketing. And so he actually put the Mayan calendar into a game form, a board game, so people could not only read about it, but could day by day experience the movement of time through moving these little pieces on the board and seeing how the relationship of the calendar and its days and its numbers correlated with each other. When Jose did this study back in the 80s, the MAM, who are the TZI, who were the daykeepers of the Maya calendar, were in Guatemala. This system had been out of use for hundreds of years, except by the daykeepers, these shaman of the Mayan culture. And at this point, there was a great Holocaust going on, in a sense, in the Yucatan, in the Chiapas, in Guatemala. And this government was going in and they were trying to eradicate the indigenous people. They wanted the land, they wanted the mineral rights for the land that they were on, and they would go in and in groups of hundreds. There was one grave that they found over 200 Mayan people in this grave. They would go in and they would destroy in a genocide form this culture as heartily as they could. And so the MAM, the sacred shaman of this tradition, went into hiding, and they went into the caves near Momotsinango, and were not known to be even around. No one even knew where they were. So that even had someone been tortured to find out where these guys were, no one knew. So they protected themselves, and they protected their history with this calendar. Then in the 90s, when this dreadful catastrophe was finally winding down, the Maya came out, the daykeepers or the shaman came out, and they saw Jose Arcueles' work. And it was called at that point the dream spell. And when they looked at it, they were amazed at the work that he had done. And it seemed to be so well interpreted. Of course, the codexes had been translated at that point, so there was a real form to it. But when it got down to what day is this, they looked at the chart and they said, but this is not the day. This is like 54 days off. And Jose had done what we call coordinates. He tried to see actual events that happened in the calendar and correlate them to Gregorian dates and even pre-Gregorian dates. You take a Gregorian calendar that only started in 1572 when Pope Gregory assigned dates, changed the calendar and added, one leap day every 4 years to do the balance to it and all that kind of stuff. We call it the Gregorian calendar. Came after the Julian. And so you can take the Gregorian calendar and backslide it all the way back, as I did on this chart, back to August 11th, 3114 BCE, before Common Era, which gives us the 5,125 years ago that we're now winding down this huge cycle of time. And this cycle of time was one that the Maya had been keeping. It's called the long count. It's not the dream spell. Many people inappropriately equate the Mayan calendar with Jose Arquelles' work called the dream spell. It's not correct. It's correct in many forms, but he made a game out of it. He called them the wizards. He called them, the dragon. He used these fun kind of names about the archetypes that are not, obviously are not the same ones that the shaman were using. And he also got, because his correlation dates were wrong, Jose had an axe to grind with Pope Gregory, the 17th. He's not the Pope that brought us the Gregorian chants back in the early centuries that are all connected to the solfeggio, music and tone sound that we're now rediscovering, how music is a healing force. So that's not the same Pope Gregory. This is the 17th one. They keep repeating their names as things go on, right? And so he had an axe to grind with him because of the February 29th, every 4 years, blah, blah, blah. So when Jose calculated his dates, he dropped the leap year day, February 29, for all those years, which threw his calendar off quite a bit from the origin. Well, you don't drop days. You can't say, well, today ain't a day. Today is the day out of time in Jose's calendar. It is a day that is out of time. It doesn't have a significant day to it. This is what he did. People around the world, Japan has actually taken the Mayan calendar and used it as their secondary calendar, Jose's dream spell calendar. In Brazil, they have adopted the Mayan calendar to be their secondary calendar, the dream spell. So you can see around the world, in almost every nation, I think 140 some places, there were planet art networks, PAN groups, who met and studied this calendar. Well, Jose died a year and a half ago in March of 2011. And the debate at that point has kind of ended, and we're like putting that aside, and we're now like really totally engrossing ourselves, I guess you'd say, in the long count calendar. So if you're going to go do research with it on the internet, which there's lots and lots of it there, make sure that you're going to a place like Diagnosis 2012. There are many different sites, but steer away from the dream spell calendar unless you're interested in an alternative form. Many people believe that he channeled this information, this new form of time. He said, this is a new dispensation of time. It's not the Mayan calendar. It's a new dispensation of time. And so he set it aside for that reason. The Maya culture, the 440 Mayan elders in Mexico did not allow him to come to Mexico and teach, because they felt like he was teaching an incorrect interpretation of the Mayan calendar and calling it the Mayan calendar. There was a time when he actually shifted and called it something else, and supposedly his marketing just fell down. And so instead, he brought it back up to the dream spell Mayan calendar just to keep his marketing up. And they were just totally livid about all this, and so it was like they would probably have his head, as they say in my culture, if he had come there. He died in New Zealand, and there are still many of us who really honor his work because he made the Mayan calendar consciousness totally available to the world. And now what we're just doing is trying to convert that consciousness over to the long count calendar, which is the one that Philadelphia Archaeological Museum at U of Penn uses, the long count calendar. That's all they talk about. They don't talk about anything else. So that's how I got into it. She gave me this page, and I got into Jose Arcueles. And for many years, as many of you know, I was publishing a calendar called the Almanac, and I always would include the Mayan calendar because I thought that's what the Mayan calendar was, and I was using Jose's interpretation. Until about 2002 or 3, I got more interested in deepening that relationship to the calendar and discovered the long count, and discovered that Jose's was off, and discovered that the 440 Mayan elders in Mexico did not welcome him, and they were not interested in even talking about dream spell. And then I began to shift. Now, because I was so committed to it, I still follow it. I see it as a new dispensation of time. I see it as a kind of a modern interpretation. And on the other hand, I look at the long count calendar, and I also have a way of combining them to create something that's even new and different for myself and for other people. But I'm committed, and all the material I want to give you tonight, all the material I'm giving you tonight is all based on the long count calendar. And I want to describe that a bit to you. I've been a daykeeper. That's a person who's obsessed with numbers and with counting and with time systems. I've been obsessed with it, and I've been a daykeeper every day since the cycle began. The cycle that I'm on right now began in November of 1999. So I've been following it for almost 12, 13 years, and haven't missed a day. And that's what I mean by obsession. And I'm not asking any of you to do that, but I'm wanting to take a position of the shaman daykeepers that were the ones that were up in the caves. I think someone needs to be doing that. A lot of people are probably doing it. Sheena, a friend of mine who edited this or published this book with me, is a day-to-day daykeeper. And we teach in Sayulita, Mexico, where we live. And we have a thing called Maya on the Playa, which means Maya on the beach. Every Wednesday we have a class that people come to. And this class has evolved other daykeepers, but I don't know any that are quite as into it as Sheena and I are, though I'm sure there are others in Mexico. So we really do follow it religiously, as you might say. This past June, on the 20th, this past May, the 20th of May, there was an eclipse above the Chichen Itza pyramid to Quetzalcoatl. And the eclipse was one that involved the sun. It was an annular eclipse, which is one where the moon appears smaller than the sun, and the swath of it, washed across the United States. But when it